America is Dead. The Incredible Murder of Donald Trump. Chapter 2. Alex Jones. I arrived in Palm Beach on the wings of a dragon. It was revolting, cramped and sweaty, hundreds of parasites each clinging to the underside of one of the dragon's slimy scales, smelly bare feet shoved on my armrest while they waited for their so-called complimentary bag of peanuts. It was almost as bad as Palm Beach itself. I was the only real human on the dragon, the only real American man with balls and testes and the courage to speak out, and the bloodsucker pushing the alcohol cart up and down the aisle cut me off after only 3 vodkas because, apparently, I was being disruptive to the other passengers. Oh, was I being disruptive, Carolyn? Was I? Was I rocking the boat of your convenient delusion that you live in a world where hollow earth reptiles aren't in total control of your lives and your spines? I'm busy trying to save your souls here, you soulless bastard, so yes, sometimes I get a bit shouty. I am not sorry. After a half dozen of the inhuman scum on the dragon with me tried to get me to sleep with them, they may not have souls, but they've got eyes and can see what a virile hunk of patriot I am and want to ride my freedom train. Choo-choo. The dragon walked us to our terminal and belched us into the jetway. The flight attendant Tick, who 15 minutes ago was threatening to call the air marshal on me if I didn't just settle down and stop yelling at the shapeshifter, who was pretending to be an 18-month-old little girl with an ear infection, was now thanking me for my business and wishing me a happy stay in Palm Beach. I tell her it's not too late to stop being a soulless tick, but she doesn't know what to say to that. They never know what to say. I need to get a taxi to get to the Palm Beach Convention Center, and as I look for the taxi stand, I do my best to avoid making eye contact with anyone around me. It's like that scene in The Matrix where Neo is walking down the street and is distracted by the woman in the red dress and doesn't notice that Agent Smith has possessed one of the people in the crowd he's walking through and shoots Neo in the head. So I don't want to get distracted by any beautiful women in red dresses or, good Christ, get drawn into a conversation with a fan. Look, human people, I get it. I do what I do to save the world from the demonic forces on the verge of destroying it, and I do my best to give you the tips you need to save yourself, but I hate talking to you. I don't have time to listen to you thank me for my tireless work to defeat the globalist agenda. And if you're a reptilian or a fifth-dimensional sulfuric democratic slipturian trying to infect my nose hairs with your godlessness or whatever, I don't have time to listen to you threaten me for my tireless work to defeat the globalist agenda. Sometimes my enemies, when they're shapeshifted into the form of a voluptuous young woman in a red dress or a voluptuous 80-year-old woman in a red MAGA hat, try to trick me into giving them my signature. And even though they claim they just want an autograph, I know they want to use my signature to steal my power and identity. I challenge them and fling some of the holy water I keep in my false tooth, then they disappear in a puff of acrid smoke. None of these lizard fuckers can stand up to my false teeth. The taxi stand is outside the front of the airport, so I brace myself for the terrible weather here and step through the doors. My God, Florida is a sweaty pisshole. My beautiful fitted t-shirt goes from a bone-dry heather to a soaking black sponge in an instant, and I am swarmed immediately by malarial nanobot-carrying mosquitoes. Why anyone would want to live in this pisshole is beyond me. Maybe if I was a Democrat, I'd like it here. I don't like it here. As I wait for my turn to pay too much to a South Grenetian goblin for a 10-minute taxi ride to my hotel, the mosquitoes take their turn trying to infect me with their mind-controlled nanobots from Bill Gates. But I'm not worried about them getting in my brain and hijacking my manly arms and legs and thoughts because I'm protected. If you're scared of the malarial mosquitoes and don't want them to infect your brain with their 5G mind control, here's a recipe that'll keep you safe. Alex Jones's homemade malarial nanobot vaccine. 1. Take a cup of Greek yogurt. Mix in 2 tablespoons of activated charcoal. This will force the anti-nanobot defenses to activate in a later step. 2. Set the yogurt mixture outside in the sun for 17 days. 3. After 17 days, bring it inside. This is very important. 16 days is not enough, and if you leave it outside for 18 days, you will die. 4. Put the yogurt in a blender and mix it with 1/2 cup crushed peanuts. Blend until smooth. 5. Start vigorously rubbing the yogurt mixture on your cock, and when you're finished, take the jizz you just made and smear it on your face. 6. Let the activated jizz rest on your face for 3 hours. When the jizz absorbs into your skin, you'll be protected from the nanobots, no matter what Bill Gates had planned for you, the slimy fuck. As a bonus, the jizz will give your skin a nice glow. And that's how you can protect yourself from the evil 5G nanobot mosquitoes. Good luck, Patriot. I made it to the front of the taxi line and got in the back seat of a 5-legged snarlon beast and asked the Grenetian goblin piloting it to take me to my hotel. Now, I know what you're thinking. Was I really trusting a Grineshian to actually get me to my destination and not steal my teeth and leave me in a ditch somewhere? Grineshians are even worse than Ultrazoids. Sure, that's a concern, but if the alternative is Uber, well, if you knew what I knew about Uber, you would set fire to their head office and dance while the CEO's children burned. I'd rather be a victim of a creepy tooth-eating Grineshian than have to deal with the gig economy. My God. I was in town to be a headline speaker at FreedomCon, the biggest conference for people who actually give a shit about the state of the world, for people who want to reclaim the country and defeat the globalist donkey cocks from the ninth dimension. That's not a metaphor, by the way. I saw talking donkey cocks entering our reality one time through a portal behind a Five Guys in Portland. I killed them all before they had a chance to tell me what they wanted, but it was scary and I was hard. Ben Shapiro. So FreedomCon had a schedule of presentations that everyone was going to give, but all anybody's talking about is Trump. I mean, obviously, it's a major world event. Would it be literally the only thing people will talk about? Would anybody be giving the speech they had their assistants write with ChatGPT over their lunch break, or would they just wing it? Ann Coulter, who I love and think is absolutely hilarious, was scheduled to talk about Trump was yesterday, why the GOP needs to move on. But I didn't think she was enough of a troll to still give that speech. She's too kind-hearted to ever do anything like that. Seriously, off camera, she's like the nicest Nazi. All the hate crimes are just for show. Jordan Peterson's talk was Why Liberalism Fails, Democracies and History's Dustbin, from Nazi Germany to North Korea to Trudeau's Canada. I'd been looking forward to that one, actually, but now I figured Jordan would probably just spend his hour sitting on stage, crying silently. Shame, but maybe there's an opportunity to sell some tissues with a picture of Jordan's face on it? Or maybe a handkerchief to catch leftist tears? Man, that joke will never stop being funny. The convention halls were filled with all sorts of great conservative products, like a set of dinner plates with different pictures of AOC's butt on them, so that every time you'd eat your dinner, you'd be eating it off of her butt, which would really make her look foolish. There was a Bernie Sanders body pillow. He looked so tired and confused in the photo they used, it would look amazing tucked under my covers. And there was a masturbation sleeve that looked like Joe Biden's face. It even had a hole on the other end too, so we could finally screw him like he's been screwing the American people for the past 4 years. Just really great stuff that would just utterly trigger the libs because they don't understand comedy. Let's go, Brandon! Let's go! I should explain. The reason Brandon is a brilliant joke because it lets us conservatives, who are obviously under relentless assault by the mainstream media, make fun of President Joe Biden in a safe way that liberals don't understand and can't stop. We may be saying Brandon, but actually we're meaning Joe Biden. We may be saying let's go, but we're actually meaning fuck. So when they think we're saying let's go Brandon, we're actually saying fuck Joe Biden. They don't realize we're making fun of him. It's great. We are clever people. Amid the variety of top-notch conservative products in the main hall, there were a bunch of memorials for Trump, obviously. Some people had set up little shrines in the aisles, and some of the people had given up their booths to give people space to just sit and talk about all the ways Trump had made their lives better. All these people were being open about their feelings and grieving about the loss of someone very important to them and crying freely with no judgment. It was really touching, and because it was happening in a safe space for conservatives, it wasn't woke, homosexual, transgender, or vegan. It was very refreshing. After I made it out of the hall, a short, very unserious man with a big bald spot and even bigger beard approached me, looking smug and surly. The name on his lanyard was, "Hello, I'm Cody Johnston," and he was standing on a little portable bridge. He looked up at me. Even though he was standing on a bridge, he was still much shorter than I am, as my height is exactly average, so I am taller than half of all men, and smirked childishly at me. Well, 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 my nemesis. We meet at last, Ben. Are you afraid because it's finally happening? I have a clean yarmulke for you if you soil the one you've got on." I had no idea who he was. The name didn't ring a bell, but I get a lot of people trying to take a shot at me every day, so he could be some obsessed YouTuber who tweets at me a dozen times a day trying to get my attention like a little obsessed freak, and I wouldn't know. People like that are a dime a dozen. Basically, I'm popular, and nobody knows who he is. I'm a bit busy now. I'm trying to make it to a session that's about to start, I pointed out, civilly. Well, 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 if it isn't the shoe on the other foot, Ben. Very well, I shall let you pass if you answer my riddles one, he said, like a weirdo. I get this a lot. Sure, take your best shot. But remember, if you're going to come at the king, you best not miss. Oh, I'm practically a sniper, Ben. Pew pew. What a damn weirdo. What's your question? Oh, right, sorry, he said, fumbling through a stack of papers that didn't appear to have anything on them except for what I think was Mrs. Cody Shapiro, written over and over in a handwriting so bad it made me wish phrenology was still a thing. After way too much time spent rooting for whatever he thought would take me down, he finally asked, "What's the difference between sex and gender?" I sighed. Even for someone like me, who's really good at debate and who really enjoys it, knocking down low-hanging fruit like that can get boring. Men can't become women, I said. The shock of my words hit Cody like a pellet gun to the face. He recoiled violently, as if I just hit him with my big arm muscles. "My God, you're right," he said, obviously. I've been so blind. Then he fell to the ground, rocking back and forth, and wept. Everyone who'd been minding their own business up to that point stopped what they were doing, turned toward us, and they all clapped. Before I left this poor, sobbing wreck of a man to consider all of the bad life choices that had caused him to be so dumb, I knelt down beside him, took out my leftist tears mug, and scraped some of his leftist tears into my leftist tears mug. I'd enjoy them later. I made it to the hall about 10 minutes before Jordan's talk was set to begin, so I found a seat in the preceding talk. That topic was about being a persuasive female conservative or something. I don't know. I hadn't read the sign on my way in the room. I didn't recognize the speaker either. She had bright blonde hair, a year's worth of red lipstick on her face, and an outfit that looked like she got it out of a How to Look Like Every Other Conservative Woman Online guidebook. I'm not being sexist when I describe her like that, by the way, or when I say that all of the women on Fox, Newsmax, and the like are all interchangeable to me. That's not sexist, because that's why they were each hired. They're generically attractive women from the lower 48 states, spinning the same folksy wisdom with the same effortless spunk on tap. It's a product that sells. The blonde woman told a joke about a Democrat getting stuck in a wet paper bag and winked at the audience as she did. The embarrassingly small crowd ate it up. They loved her, even though after the talk I bet none of them would have been able to pick her out of a police lineup. Again, I'm not being sexist. They're practically designed to look the same. It's like they were all grown from the same vat or built in the same factory. Eventually, she finished, got a polite round of applause from most of the audience, and an enthusiastic catcall from the loneliest man in the room, and left. A few minutes after that, the room filled to capacity in anticipation of Jordan and his electric hour of weeping. His session started, and he began giving a really thought-provoking explanation of why North Korea is actually a democracy. Did you know they call themselves the Democratic People's Republic of Korea? But he just couldn't keep it together and started talking about Trump, then crying. He got a standing ovation, even though I'd seen him cry better on his show for the Daily Wire Plus. I'm not being biased when I say that, either. I'm his boss. Jordan's talk might have ended predictably, but as with all of these kinds of conventions, the interesting stuff, the important stuff, would all be happening in the hallways between sessions and in the speaker's room. That's where I was headed, partly because I had my own talk to get ready for it, but also because the speaker's room was where all the cool kids would be hanging out. And what am I if not a cool kid? Let's go! Brandon! Mitch McConnell. Am I in the speaker's room, or am I in hell? Surely I am unsure. Though there are no racks upon which men scream, and no pits of endless fire in which they burn, everyone around me seems either an ancient spectre, like myself. I see the ghosts of Lindsey Graham, Chuck Grassley, and one of the Kennedys. I forget his name, the dumb one. Or some newly minted sprite eager to devour my essence and take their place at the right hand of Satan. But that was my seat. I earned it. The specters wave at me. They say my name and ask how I've been. But their voices seem like dim memories from the past, and I fear that my response wouldn't reach their ears, so I dare not try. The ghost of Lindsey Graham looks at me with contempt as though I've wronged him in some fashion, and I realize that not even being dragged down to the depths of Hades has cured him of that most pernicious affliction of being an insufferable little shit. Anyhow, I've been invited to the FreedomCon to deliver a speech about the importance of treating your political opponents fairly, because I do enjoy a good joke. And apparently, despite my advanced age, there are still those in the Republican Party who wish to hear my thought. Such are the advantages of being an eldritch statesman with such a high body count, I suppose. A young man with a headset told me that it would be my turn to deliver my speech at this conference for the damned in 5 minutes, but I think he said that 18 years ago. This morning, my wife Elaine made me breakfast. It was a piece of pie, which I could tell was haunted. I ate the pie, but does that mean I am now haunted? Surely I am haunted by my past, but am I still Mitch McConnell, or am I now a merely adequate piece of pastry with an unwanted passenger scraping at the vestiges of my mind? Would I haunt someone else, I wonder, were they to eat me now? I suppose my wife will never know. She hasn't done that in 13 years. The man who lifetimes ago told me I would be speaking soon apparates from no source I can determine, and tries to sell me the lie that he had been attempting to get my attention for the past 10 minutes, but that I was not responding to him, nor to anyone else. I was simply standing in the room oblivious as though I was some type of statue. Well, that man is a liar, no matter how many medical staff he brings to bolster his case, for I'm not a statue in any sense of the word. I am a man, or at least a piece of pie, the leftovers of which I shall not eat tomorrow morning, no matter how strenuously my wife informs me that it's all we have left in the fridge. It just wasn't good pie, Elaine, and not because it was haunted. It wasn't good pie because you are a bad cook. There, I said it. For too long have I been yoked to the lie that what you cook me is ever any good, Elaine, but no more. Today I finally tell you the truth. Your cooking has always been atrocious. It's enough to turn a person bulimic. It killed 3 of our dogs. Finally, I feel free. Anyhow, I consider arguing with the young man with the microphone and the clipboard who is even now asking me if I can hear him, if I'm okay or if I need to sit down, about his perception of time. But I have my task set to me by God, or the devil, or some scary being whose nature I can't even contemplate. And I mean to fulfill it, so I let him guide me to the lectern, to the dull applause for my presence and to my speech. The room quiets, and I begin with a fatuous appeal to the audience's sophistication. Tell them what an honor it is to be presented at such an august group, then reach into my pocket for a list of talking points I don't remember scrolling. My lips move, and sound emits from between them as appropriate, but what I say I know not. I continue on this way in a robust fugue for the best part of 15 minutes, then return to my senses in time to hear the words, "Thank you very much," escape my throat. What else did I say? No idea. It has always been thus since the bargain, since that night at the crossroads. I recede into myself as the needed message erupts through whatever sorcery was placed upon me. I always say the right thing, blow the right amount of smoke, trick the right idiots. It's the gift that I bargained for. Sometimes I remember the content of my speeches in a nightmare, but for the most part it seems that even my subconscious knows to stay away from them. Next, people line up so that I might explain myself. Question time. Typically, I would be asked to elaborate on the position in my talk, along with a few pleas to explain the apparent inconsistencies in my view of what is too soon to consider a new justice of the Supreme Court. If a Democrat wants one, it's too soon. But not this time. Today, Donald Trump and the fact of his demise fills all of our thoughts. A young woman who looks only slightly less uncomfortable to be here than I am asked me if I did enough to help facilitate Trump's goals while he was in office. I do. A man in a polka dot bow tie asks what process the GOP should use to determine the new candidate for presidency. I demur because, as of yet, I don't know who among the field of possibilities would be easiest for me to manipulate. I know that I am facing my penance and must atone for all my sins, but that's just how I think. It will be a truly difficult habit to dismember if ever I'm able. Did I manipulate Trump while he was in office? As the cow chewed his cud, I twisted that churl to my ends. I did it well. I was good at it. I've always been good at it. A young person of indeterminable gender with a bright green stripe of hair that sort of goes straight up from their head in a way that brings to mind poor architecture, a person who is meant to be on the youthful, hip forefront of conservatism, as contrived as any of the times I told my wife that yes, this dinner is edible, Elaine, films me with their smartphone while asking me, "What do you think happened to President Trump?" I say, "I believe he died." Despite the tenor of the room, and indeed the entire political movement, my words elicit a measure of laughter. "Take that, Bing Crosby, you degenerate fuck." The person says, "No, I mean, do you think he was assassinated?" I consider my response for a moment, then I draw a timid breath and do something I almost never do. I answer honestly. I do not know why Donald Trump is dead, but I will find out. It is my only mission, one that God or the devil or whoever scares them both has brought me back from the dead for and set me upon. And the sanctity of my eternal soul rests on my ability to uncover the truth to the world. I am asked no further questions.
Blonde woman. People say I'm just a pretty face, but they're wrong. I've also got strong opinions on God, my family, and stopping the takeover of my country by an ill-defined threat from outside our borders. Plus, I've got a pretty face. People say I look like every other blonde woman in conservative media, but you know what? A lot of those women aren't even real blondes, and their hair color comes out of a bottle. And I may not be a natural blonde either, but my hair dye is very expensive. I just finished giving a talk at FreedomCon, and it had gone really well. It was called A Strong Conservative Woman, How to Be One. And a bunch of people showed up to listen. I got a lot of folks hooting and hollering at what I had to say, and I just know it was because of my ideas and not the super cute skirt I was wearing. I told a great joke about Democrats being limp like wet spaghetti that got a huge laugh from some truckers. I even saw Ben Shapiro laugh, which made me feel pretty good. I could tell he respected what I was doing. After my talk, I headed to the speaker's room to take a quick break from the crowds. There were a lot of crazy famous people in there with me, y'all. Alex Jones, Lindsey Graham, as much of Charlie Kirk's big old head as they could fit through the door, and a whole bunch more. I was starstruck. It was crazy. There was a nice spread of snacks in the speaker's room, and to get in, I had to show this really nice security fellow with a Stars and Stripes t-shirt my lanyard, which had my name on it. I'm from... Nice to meet you. While everybody in the speaker's room was eating, they were talking about President Trump, the poor thing. I still hadn't really accepted that he was dead. We were all in shock. I kept expecting him to walk through the door with a glit in his eye and a glisten on his forehead like nothing had ever happened. I think we all were hoping for something like that, but unfortunately, there's only room in the universe for one Messiah at a time, and Jesus ain't done his business yet. It's so sad, y'all. Some people were talking about how Trump's death would impact the election, and how it pretty much guaranteed that the Democrats would win even though they only had Sleepy Joe Biden at the wheel. Biden might be the worst option, and he definitely is, but if he's the only option, he's the one most people will vote for. Tim Pool started saying that Trump's death would mean that whatever candidate we ended up getting behind would get the sympathy vote and trounce Biden and get all 538 electoral votes, but Alex Jones, who was eating a piece of cake, threatened to stab him with a fork, but then pulled off the little beanie Tim always wears, and Tim got so freaked out about people seeing that he was bald that he covered his head with his hands and ran out of the room crying. Tim, honey, we already knew you were bald. Everybody knows, and people only mention it because you keep pretending you have hair. Tim, if you just admitted it, nobody would talk about it anymore. Nobody would care. And me? What did I think Trump's death would do to the election? Well, nobody was asking my opinion, and when I tried to pipe in, it seemed like none of the fellas there were able to hear me, but in my opinion, Trump's death would put the Republican institution into disarray, and we'd shoot ourselves in the foot by propping up too many potential candidates and diluting our votes, ensuring a Democrat victory, to say nothing of the well-intentioned dears who would get confused and vote Donald Trump as a write-in, wrongly thinking that it was a touching tribute that would count for the actual Republican candidate. But to those people I say, we don't have a parliamentary system like Canada, y'all. That's not how our system works. After a while, Ben Shapiro came into the speaker's room, and he joined in with all the speculating. The conversation shifted a bit to be about how Trump died. Most everyone in the room figured he was killed, but the question was, who did it and why? A bunch of folks assumed it was Biden, but some thought it was Obama, or that it was Hillary's revenge for exposing her to the world as a fraud, or Rachel Maddow because she's a lesbian. Some folks thought it was Putin, or President Xi, or, well, basically anybody who could do it was a suspect as far as this group was concerned. Everyone in the world had murder in their eyes, apparently. After a while, Alex Jones stood up, looking like a ripe cherry. His face just gets so darn red when he gets upset, y'all, and shouted about how something had to be done, that the reptilian overlords can't be allowed to get away with this, and that we couldn't wait for the police forces to complete their investigations. They're in the pocket of the deep state. Wake up, he yelled. So what are you saying, Alex? Ben Shapiro asked. I'm saying we need to figure out what happened to Trump, and fast, Jones yelled. You think we can figure it out before the authorities do? Shapiro asked. Does spring water turn the friggin' frogs gay? Alex Jones asked, and I have to confess, folks, it took me a minute to remember what that even meant. I was pretty sure he meant to say yes, but you can never be sure what the conversation is when the conversation is with Alex Jones. Just then, Elon Musk stepped into the room with a strange-looking hat on his head and said, I can solve this mystery before I finish my lunch of 3 bologna sandwiches because, unlike the rest of you, I'm not a DEI hire. Then laughed at his own joke while the room was otherwise dead silent. America is Dead, The Incredible Murder of Donald Trump. Written by Brian Hogg. Performed by Brian Hogg. This book is being made available in audio and text formats. If you're interested in reading it instead of listening to it, go to hoggworks.com, which is HOGGWORKS.com, and following the links. This book is a work of fiction and of satire. No specific claims about actions or beliefs about people are being made. For example, goblin taxis do not operate out of Palm Beach, and so far as I'm aware, Ben Shapiro does not have an interest in having sex with Joe Biden's face.